Here we go. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our third Facebook Live on reactivity in dogs. If any of you are new and don't know us, I'm Laura Hunter. This is Celeste Gagnon. We teach the Walks at Work program for reactive dogs and Drop the Leash, and we both have reactive dogs, so we're owners as well as trainers. So today we wanted to talk about reducing stress in your reactive dog or anybody's reactive dog. So why is it so important to manage and reduce stress in your dog? Well, first of all, stress is obviously a health issue. Dogs are like humans. Stress can make them sick and cause all sorts of issues. It's also a quality of life issue. For any of us who live with stress and anxiety, and in this day and age, we all live with stress and anxiety, you know that it does affect the quality of your day-to-day life. And thirdly, it's a training issue. You can't help your dog change their reactive behavior if they're too stressed to learn and to listen to you. So managing their stress levels is crucial to reducing that reactive behavior in your dogs. And actually, I should stop calling it reactive behavior and start calling it emotional responses, because it isn't about voluntary behavior. It definitely is an emotional response in your dog, and it definitely is affected by fear, frustration, stress, anxiety. So let's just, for a minute, let's just think about what a walk actually looks like for a fearful or anxious dog. So your stressed out dog is probably considerably more hypervigilant to their environment. If they're an anxious dog, they're probably scanning constantly in anticipation of something that's scary or fearful or something that's threatening. And it's important for people to understand, I think, this was a big light bulb moment for me, is that your reactive dogs can be both fearful and anxious. They can be fearful but not anxious, although I have to think both of our dogs have both fear and anxiety, so I think it's fairly common. But fear and anxiety are a little bit different, and how your dog handles them is a little bit different. So fear, we consider an emotional response to a specific trigger. Anxiety is more about anticipation or apprehension of that fearful thing, that fearful trigger, popping up in front of you, that thing of when is it going to happen? When's it going to show up? So if you have a dog that's got that anxiety as well, the entire walk, I know with my dog, if we're walking in a busy neighborhood, her entire walk is about scanning the environment. What's going to show up? It's going to happen. I just know it. Oh my goodness, here it comes. So I'm not sure that everybody notices or sees that, but just that reactivity in the moment to the trigger is not the only stressful part of your dog's walk. Slash, you want to weigh in on that with Penny at all?
No, I mean, that's exactly it. It's waiting for something to happen, especially if something happened somewhere around there before.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a learning. That's learning, and yeah, and we're going to talk about that as well, about the environment and how, and we'll throw it in now because it's timely. Is that whether you realize it or not, your dogs are always learning from the environment. They're always picking up cues from the environment. We think that I don't know what we think actually, but we all fall into that trap of thinking your dog's actually not checked in unless you're interacting with them or teaching them something or you're dealing with them in some way. But it's the environment that is having that effect on your dog. And it's the environment that's handing out those cues. And we're just part of the environment. We're not the be all and end all. We're just part of the environment. So yeah, there's always stuff going on that we humans don't notice. So, if they're in that state of anxiety or they're they're fearful, or they've just encountered the trigger and they're just coming down, they're not going to be able to pay any attention to you anyway. And they're certainly not going to be able to respond to any cues that you might give, even though those cues are cues that they know really well at home, or in other situations where they're not sort of in that anticipatory state. And certainly, for the most part, they're incapable of doing any training in that situation. We always say to people in our program that in any kind of training, you want to train for the situation and not in the situation. Eventually, you will get to the point where you can train in the situation, but you have to spend an awful lot of time training and preparing for that situation. So, all your dog is worried about on that walk is if you have a fearful, anxious dog, their main worry and their main concern on that walk is about their safety and their survival. And so they're not going to focus on us. They're not going to listen to us. Probably a lot of them can't even take reinforcement, can't take cookies. People tell me all the time, well, when my dog goes out in the environment, they don't take cookies. That's got nothing to do with your dog's desire for reinforcement or food motivation. That might be a dog that's simply totally overwhelmed and can't focus on the reinforcer. Were we going to add something, Celeste? Or?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say, because we often have clients that tell us how stubborn their dogs are. They won't walk on a walk. They won't. And I'm thinking a lot of the time, they're probably anxious about whatever situation they're in. It has nothing to do with stubbornness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I often hear that in my puppy program. Not that I have reactive puppies, but a lot of people say, oh, they're so stubborn, they won't come off the lawn. Most puppies are the first few times they get out in the world, they're overwhelmed by the world. So, that's a big jump from the house to the sidewalk. So I have to say to them, I think they're a little overwhelmed. I think they're a little frightened, and you got to take it slowly. So, super easy to be dogs. Your dogs are, in a constant state of stress on their walks. And, if they see the trigger, chances are they are going to go over threshold, and they're going to, the fearful dogs are going to bark and lunge to send that scary thing away, because, again, they're not going to be able to listen to you in that moment. They're just worried about surviving and being safe. So definitely you need to keep those fearful dogs under threshold, under that stress level whenever you can on a walk. And we'll talk about how to do it down the road. On the flip side, we have the frustrated dogs, because fear and frustration are the two big issues in leash reactivity. And your frustrated dog isn't fearful, but I'm be willing to bet that most of them are probably in a state of over arousal before they even come out the front door. In fact, somebody sent me a video just a week or two ago. They wanted me to see their dog, not a client, and I got the video of this thing just like out the door, and I thought, oh my gosh, just turn around and take it back in. Like, there's nothing you can do at that point, because they are so over aroused. So they're going to be scanning the environment as well, but they're going to be looking for exciting stuff. They're going to be looking for the cause of that excitement, because going for a walk to them predicts meeting other dogs and other people. So that anticipation, that predictability of going out for a walk and meeting, people and dogs, always is going to, well, most of the time is going to lead to that over arousal, and it's stress as well. It's might not be the same kind of stress as your fearful dog, but it is still stress. There are actually two kinds of stress. There's distress, which is the fearful dogs. Oh my goodness, we're worried. We're fearful. We're stressed. What's going to happen? And there's something called eustress, eustress, which I guess you could say it's a good kind of stress. It's what we want from, we run agility here. It's what we want from our agility dogs. We want that level of arousal. But again, if you've got a dog who is over aroused, even though we call it the good stress, it's not really practical stress for us out on a walk. And then what happens with all these frustrated dogs is, if they're not allowed to meet, and they usually aren't, you get that emotional response. You get the lunging and the barking out of frustration because they can't decrease the distance between themselves and the trigger. So they're over stress threshold as well. Their stress levels are so high that they're not listening to you. They're not going to respond to the training. They can't pay attention. And the other thing that I think happens with frustrated to dogs, and this is my own personal opinion, is that after they've actually not been able to meet so many other dogs, the sight of a new dog is not going to be that happily exciting anymore. They're going to have a negative emotional response to it, because the sight of a yet another dog is just going to predict more frustration. So they're going to have that negative emotional response to the other dogs too. So, whether it's fear, whether it's frustration, your dog's always going to be overstressed, and you've got to work to try and to decrease that. And the third, we actually didn't talk about the other participant on the walk, which is the human. So we actually can share a lot of those emotional responses, those behaviors, and that stress with our dogs. It's not a whole lot different. Chances are, if you have a reactive dog, you're going to be hypervigilant, and you're going to be anxiety ridden. You're going to be constantly scanning the horizon for triggers. I know Celeste and I have talked about that. I don't, I'm very lucky in that I don't have to walk my dog in a crowded area, but certainly, Celeste, I'm sure that you spend most of your time in energy scanning.
Yeah, no, it's an automatic behavior now for me.
Yeah, automatic stress. Isn't that great?
I don't even think about it, but I don't know that I feel stressed about it anymore.
No.
Absolutely. But I am hypervigilant. Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
But I'll be honest, the anxiety does kick in if I see something coming up and I'm not sure how to get out of the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Then I feel
exactly. I as I said, I don't walk. We've got forest. We're spoiled rotten here. And Maddie hasn't been to town for a while. I used to take Maddie to town, but we were walking in the forest a couple of months ago, and we came around the corner of our back trail, and we ran into the woman across the road on her horse. And it was just like right in our face. And like, I had my reactive dog with me, and both of us just went like, my God, the horse, my God, the woman, my God. And, I know afterwards my heart was pounding. I was a little bit shaky. I was like, oh my God, I gotta, settle down here. So I do have a sense of what it's like when a dog pops up in front of you when you're out for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, for us with Penny, it's mostly just other dogs. It used to be people, but we kind of worked our way through that one. But I can imagine for people who have dogs that are reactive to all of those stimulations, the other dogs, the strange people that they haven't seen before, the weird tractor that's coming down the road, or truck.
Yeah.
Like that would be stressful, very stressful.
Yeah, and you made a really good point in that you said that you are not that stressed anymore. And so, I'm going to make this point. I was going to make it at the end, but I'm going to stick it in right now, and I might say it again at the end, is that we're going to give you management strategies to try and keep your dog under that, really threshold, under that over threshold level. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, management, which is what we're talking about here, will only work if you put it together with training, and training will only work if you put it together with management. So I think your stress levels have come down because I've known you for years now. And when you used to bring Penny to the program, your stress levels were much higher when you brought her to agility class. And now you're just like, yeah, I'm chilled, I'm cool. You can be like working with her and still having a conversation with me while dogs are coming up the driveway, but you have the training, and your training has become so second nature to you and Penny that both of you are pretty chilled these days, at least here. So, as I said, management will get you so far, but ultimately you need some tools and techniques in order to deal with the situation, and that will lower your stress level hugely. The ultimate stress relief is knowing what to do in a situation, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, the thing is, the stress travels back and forth up and down the leash, because if you're if you don't have those tools, if you're not sure what to do, you certainly need to get out of the situation a lot earlier. And so I think it's pretty normal for people, if they see a dog coming, or if they see a dog approaching, or even one in the distance, to start tightening up on that leash, because you're getting anxiety ridden. And the minute you tighten up on the leash, that is the cue for your dog to start going, oh my God, what are we seeing? Something's coming. The leash is tight. Here it comes. And then on the other end of it, if you haven't, even if you don't tighten up on the leash beforehand, and this is strictly because we're human, and I've seen it, and I'm not judging anybody, is once the dog, once something shows up, your dog goes over threshold and starts lunging and barking, it is totally natural and instinctive to start yanking, pulling on the leash and yelling no to your dog, because sometimes you just don't know what to do. And even if you have been doing training, in that moment, it's out of your head. And a lot of our clients tell us in the beginning, oh my God, we knew what to do, but we couldn't even think about it at that moment, because the dog's behavior is stressing you, and then you're stressing them, and then it goes to hell, So we get it. So, everybody, the stress is interfering with everybody's ability to think rationally, to focus on what they need to do, and to learn and to practice on a leash. And that is, for me, the biggest issue is that if you can't keep your dog sort of under threshold, and if your dog can stay in a state where they are not stressed, and so they don't go lunge and bark, that is so important, because every time they lunge and bark, they're practicing that behavior. And when they're practicing that behavior, practice makes perfect. For fearful dogs, it totally creates distance between them and the fearful trigger. Either the other dog's going to turn and go for sure, or you're going to turn and go. So it works. So it becomes super entrenched. And for the frustrated dogs, lunging, barking, and pulling, if you pull hard enough, you can probably drag your owner over to the dog you want to meet. So it works. And so it becomes really, really ingrained. So it is really important that everybody, try and stay under that threshold. And, if everybody's in that state of stress, your chances of reducing the reactivity is zero. It's zero. Like, you're never going to reduce your reactivity as long as you and your dog keep getting stressed out on the walks, And then what happens, because this is just a downward spiral, we know that because we've lived it ourselves, is that people start avoiding walks, for sure. And you go for fewer walks, or, you go, well, shorter walks isn't so bad, but people start to go for fewer walks, and they start to stay home. And that becomes something that is really easy to do, because it's reinforcing for both you and the dog just to stay home and not deal with it. But one of the biggest worries in that trainers have in reactive dog world is that the dogs, reactive dogs, are often deprived of enrichment. So they stay home, they stay in crates. Even if they're not in crates, if they're just staying in the house, they're not getting the mental stimulation they need in order to be happy and satisfied. When they closed everybody down and we all had to stay home, I'm sure that for most trainers, one of their first thoughts in their head was, maybe now everybody will start to understand how mentally, what's the word I'm looking for, not deprived, but how hard that is to stay home all day and not go out in the world and interact and not get that mental stimulation and that mental enrichment. And I know right now, everybody's out, and we're all doing stuff, but I've lost track of how many people I've had conversations with about being afraid of winter coming, because, is it going to get worse? Are we going to have to stay in our homes? And, we can't have people come to the house, or we can't go to people's houses. So our dogs feel like that. A lot of our dogs feel like that as soon as they can't go out. Going out is stressful, but staying home staying home is what is the word I'm looking for? I can't come up with this, Celeste. It's not more than boring. It's just, I don't know, sterile. Not sterile. I don't know.
No, I don't know the perfect word for this, but
No. But I think,
yeah, and that like level of boredom and frustration will build. So it's not like the dog will just get used to being at home. It's going to be, I mean, it'll be calm, but it's lacking something that it essentially needs just for its own mental stability.
yes, because there was nothing.
And you'll see that. Yeah, you'll see it later on. It'll come back at you.
Yeah, exactly. You might end up with behaviors you don't want because there's nothing in dogs' genetics that prepared them for staying home,
right,
hours a day. So I guess the big question here is, so what do you do about all this? So the first thing I'm going to suggest is stop going for walks. And I just spent 5 minutes saying we need to go for walks. But what I'm going to say is stop going for the walks that aren't working. All right, because there's a big difference here. So the hardest thing that we have to do in our Walks at Work program is to convince people, pet owners, that they should not go for those stressful walks. And that's, I'm certainly not criticizing them. In fact, I think they're good pet owners because they just really think their dog needs to get out in the world and have that exercise. And, going for a walk with your dog is good for both of you. It's a bonding experience, and people are afraid to take that away from their dogs. But those walks are not the walks that you should be going on. Because, as I said, you're practicing all this stuff that doesn't work every time you go. You're both getting stressed, the reactivity is going up, and your dog will start trigger stacking. So I don't know if everybody understands what I mean by trigger stacking. So usually the easiest way to explain it is to give everybody a human example. So say, you get up one morning to go to work and you realize that your alarm didn't go off and now you're 45 minutes late. And you run into the kitchen and you're going to grab a quick cup of coffee before you go to get the bus, or get in your car, and the coffee maker isn't working. And then you miss the bus. And then you have a bad day at work and your boss yells at you, or you get in a fight with one of your co-employees. And then, you're heading home and it starts to rain and you got to catch the bus and you're soaking wet. You don't have an umbrella. So then you come home and you go through the front door and you go off on the first person that looks at you sideways, because all of that stress is adding up over time, and to the point where you just can't deal with it anymore and you just blow. And that's what happens with our dogs on walks. And we talked to a vet we know about this. We've read all sorts of stuff on this on the internet. There doesn't seem to be a time frame, but it is known that dogs' stress levels stay up longer than humans. I've heard that dogs' stress levels can stay up as much as 72 hours, which is 3 days. We talked to a vet we know. She seemed to think it stays up longer, but nobody's quite sure. And it probably, she had a good point in that it depends on how the intensity of the stress maybe and how many stressful events there have been. But we do know that dog stress levels do stay up longer. I know with my dog, if something happens the day before, she is still, we're going to get more behaviors from her the next day. We're going to get more emotional responses. We're going to get more barking and more excitement. So I know for her, they can definitely stay up for a day. So the point is that if you take your dog out on a walk and they meet or encounter one or two other dogs, and maybe you guys didn't see it, or they showed up unexpectedly, and your dog goes through that lunging, barking, emotional episode, and then you go out the next day, you might find that your dog is even more sensitive and more reactive to what happens on the walk the next day. So I know that you don't go out the next day, do you?
No,
No, no.
no, I take at least one day off.
Yeah. Can you, is that just, what's the word for that? Is that like a standard practice, or do you kind of check, see how Penny is the next day, or you automatically take the next day off? Or
Just because of experience, I automatically take the next day off. Even if she seems fine, I don't know how she will be in a situation.
so have you experienced that where, the next day when you used to, before you and I knew all this, where you would take her out and she would go off more
Oh
easily?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
She would be on alert as soon as we exited the door.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So now what I would do is I would just play with her in the yard or do something else.
Okay.
I mean, because I think that she's kind of built up some resilience to situations now because of all the work we've done.
Yeah.
But I will still give her that day off because I don't. Yeah, even if, because I mean, she might be fine and she might seem fine, and we go for a walk and everything's good, and that's great. But there's going to be that time where something unusual happens or something unexpected happens, and I don't know how she'll react in that situation, already having had that anxiety or that situation the day before.
Yeah.
So the very most that I would do is walk to the green belt at the end of the street here and just let her have a sniffari.
Yeah. So, so conservative is always
Very, very conservative.
always the way to go. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
People have to start. It'd be good if we could change everybody's mindset from my dog needs to go for a walk, whether they encounter other dogs or not, to the walk is just stressing your dog out. They are stressing out, and I think sometimes, um, obviously, the walks are probably stressing the humans out too. I've seen enough videos to tell you that yes, I can see the stress in the humans as well. But sometimes we have a tendency to look at our responses as emotional and stressful, but the dog's responses are behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes people just say, "Oh my God, the flipping dog's barking and lunging at the end of the line. Why can't it just sit? Why can't it just be quiet? Why does it have to do all these bad behaviors? Why can't it listen to me?" But we forget that the dog's behavior is just a display of emotional reaction. It's emotional stress. So. Nobody wants to live in that constant state of stress, and your dogs probably hate going out for walks as much as you do. If this is what's happening on your walks, for your dog, it's probably like going out into a war zone every day. So they're not upset if you don't take them out for a walk. They're probably thinking, "Oh God, I'm not missing anything if I don't have to go and meet those 5 dogs at the end of the street, that show up every morning on my walk." So, try to understand that you're actually doing your dog a favor by not taking them out on a walk if you think that walk is going to stress them out that day.
So just to flip it onto the human side too, if your dog had a reaction on their walk that stressed you out, let's say it was a close call to your dog biting another dog, or the other owner of the dog just let it loose on you about not training or whatever, being a bad owner, and you feel terrible and stressed, then you can also give yourself a break the next day too, for your own well-being, because you don't want to go out there and deal with people criticizing you or whatever. Like if you're too stressed to be able to walk your dog calmly and know what to do in a situation, then you give yourself a break as well.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, which any dog on the planet is going to pick up the stress in your body as soon as you pick up the leash. You probably pick up the stress in your body before you open the front door.
Yeah.
So your stress will feed their stress, and it's the downward cycle all over again. So, both of you need to take a break for sure. There's nothing wrong with that. So, we're going to try and give you some alternatives here. that you can do without, and you both can have an enjoyable time. So we have I have a number of people in my program who have reactive dogs, and we both have reactive dogs. And I know that there are a lot of us who just put our dogs in the car and take them to the forest. So, there's the answer. It's just find somewhere else to walk your dog. And it's going to be a little bit more work for you. Um, a little bit more effort and a little bit more thought on your part, but to me, that's a total trade-off to feeling stressed. So there are tons of trails around here in York region. There's trails everywhere if people just want to go and look for them. So we hike in the York Region Forest. We hike in the Rouge system. I know there's trails south of here. If you're down in the city, Sunnybrook Park is massive. You can always, there's that whole trail system through Sunnybrook Park. Anywhere you are, whether you're in an urban area or a rural area, you can get to a trail. So, and I think, what's the thing that they talk about for humans now, those forest walks? What do they call it?
Yeah. Well,
there's a weird term for it. Forest bathing or something. Oh my God.
It's true.
Yeah, I know. It's just a woo-woo way of saying that walking in nature kind of helps you decompress. So definitely, I find that my dog totally decompresses. Maddie totally decompresses when I take her out to the forest because she can sniff, she can relax, she doesn't have to worry about it. The environment gives your dog huge cues, and I think Maddie knows in the forest that we might meet a person and a dog at a distance, but very, very rarely, like very rarely. I think she knows when she's out in that environment that she doesn't have to worry about scanning all the time, and tons of different smells. So
and they're new smells.
Yes, absolutely, new and different smells for sure.
Nancy says it's forest bathing.
Yeah, thanks, Nance. It's kind of creepy, but that's okay. I think our dog's forest bathing. So, even if you don't want to drive all the way to the forest, you can still find places in urban areas where you're probably not as likely to run into dogs. So last month we were out looking for a car. So we were going to all sorts of those used car dealerships, and they're all out in industrial areas, right? So as I'm test driving all these cars around, I'm going, wow, look at that. There's a whole empty parking lot there, and there's weeds and it's overgrown and no one's in it. That's the perfect spot to walk a dog. Mm-hmm. And I've never thought of that before. But industrial areas are great because nobody goes to industrial areas, and there's always industrial malls around. And these days there's a lot of empty malls around, and your dog doesn't need a forest to sniff in. You're just going to get a different set of smells, and they are going to, they don't care what it is, as long novelty is huge, and different smells are great. And just for your dog to be able to go out and sniff is going to give them so much mental stimulation and mental enrichment. And my dogs always come home calmer, all my dogs, if they've been out and they've been allowed to sniff. So definitely parking lots in industrial areas are another place that you can go, just back of an industrial unit.
It's not a chemical unit. As long as it's not a chemical unit.
Yeah, that's true. But I was just thinking of the back of Doggy Den down in Markham. We used to teach at Doggy Den daycare, and out the back of their unit, everybody used to take their dogs to sniff out there after class. So
I take the dogs, the kids. I take the dogs to school parking lots right now.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just the big box store parking lots, because they're so huge. You've got so much distance, and you've got so much. You can see so far that you're not going to get caught in situations where your dog goes over a threshold. So there's another suggestion. And, if you can't go to another location, go at a different time. And I know that's really inconvenient because everybody gets up in the morning and they walk their dogs at 6:30 because they have to go to work, and then they come home and they want to walk their dog and just come in the house for the rest of the night. But, you know, maybe you're gonna have to pick another time. Maybe you're gonna have to do a little investigation and see when the dogs in your neighbor everybody takes their dog out at the same time. So I can't think that, like, even here on, like, we're on a country road, I know exactly when the Bernese across the road's going for a walk at night, so I keep my dogs away from the front fence. So, you know, you can kind of time when people are going and figure your schedule around that.
So I have a question, Laura.
Yeah.
For a dog who has anxiety, is it better to walk them on a schedule, or is it better to mix it up and not have a routine, a predictable routine?
Oh, okay. I was listening to Dr. Pockle yesterday.
I'm derailing you, but
and you know what? I'm gonna put some links into the comments after we're finished, because Dr. Pockle's a vet behaviorist I was talking about in our socialization live, and I take all his courses, but he has a couple of really excellent podcasts on fear and anxiety. And he has one with Hannah Brannigan from Drinking with from the Toilet.
Mhm.
And I also took a course from him as well, several courses. And he said that for dogs with anxiety, that the important thing is that they are able to have some sort of control over their environment. And also, not that they have to be locked into, you know, a strict routine, but some routine and structure is also not a bad thing.
So some good predictability.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And yeah, exactly. And again, and we'll get to this. Well, let's get to it right now. If so, you know, if I'm just going to skip forward a second here. I'm sorry, my mouth is not clean at the moment. So if you do have to go on a walk and you know that you can't avoid other dogs, or you hoping to, and something happens, and your dog has an incident, I would turn around and go home. Um, and I was just thinking in terms of dogs with anxiety, your dog might even make that choice to turn around and go home at that point. Or your dog might be looking at you thinking, or I would try and come up with a way to give my dog that choice. If they start to head for home, I would definitely let them, because for a dog with anxiety, they've actually done some research that has proven that if you can give them some sort of choice and control over their environment, it reduces that apprehension of, oh my God, what's going to happen next? So I would take my dog home at that point, fearful or anxiety ridden or frustrated. I don't care. Once they go off on a dog, I wouldn't continue on that walk, because nothing good is going to happen. But with an anxiety-ridden dog, maybe that choice to go home, or maybe that choice about where to walk. I know the man behind the scenes on this live, Scott, who's our tech guy, in that they have a big sheepadoodle, Archie, and Archie likes to choose where he walks at night. And they, or probably anytime they take him out, and they completely let Archie choose. And Archie has some reactivity issues as well. And they let Archie choose where he gets to walk, which I think is great. So if you've got an anxious dog, if you can give them some autonomy and some choice on a walk, I can't see why that wouldn't be a really great thing. I know with Maddie, you know, definitely the anxious dog. When Brett takes her out, he's the one who takes her out these days. He lets her choose where she gets to go. And, you know, we're fine with that. So, yeah, for sure. So I don't think you have to lock into a rigid routine. I don't think it's good to lock a dog into a rigid routine, but I think you can structure. I think it's more about predictability. If you choose a different time and you can get your dog out where there aren't other dogs, walks are going to start to predict a better experience than walks predicting I'm going to meet 5 dogs. So maybe it's predictability that we're looking for, rather than sort of a rigid, you know, schedule. Yeah. So, so the other thing to do also is that try, if you have to stay home, it's not the end of the world for your dog, especially if walks are stressful. So, give them enrichment activities at home, give them games to play, do training with them, because God knows training builds confidence in dogs hugely. So, your dog's quite happy to stay home with you. I always worry about my dogs going out for walks because they're Aussies. And Brett looks at me and goes, "It's pouring rain. They're happy to stay in the house as long as play with them for a few minutes here and there. They're happy to do that."
Mm-hmm.
So the other link I'll put into the comments is the link to the Canine Enrichment book, which is our Bible in this program. And everybody who has a dog, everybody who has a reactive dog should certainly read that book. And they also did a podcast with Michael Shikashio about how enrichment can help dogs with reactivity. So I'll post a link to his podcast as well for everybody to look at. But definitely their first step in reducing reactivity, Emily and Allie always address enrichment first for dogs. So give your dogs lots of mental stimulation at home. The walk isn't going to be a big issue. Mental stimulation is much more important for our dogs than physical exercise on a daily basis. Right. And I know you do tons of that with Penny.
Yeah. And I mean, at home could be even in the yard. If you decide your dog needs some fresh air or you need some fresh air, just something that's like their safe space.
Yeah, exactly. The backyard, you could even play on the front lawn. In fact, I think it is a fantastic idea if you can get your dog to not get your dog, but if you can get your dog out to the front lawn, play some games on the front lawn, and then come back into the house. You're getting your dog out there. Your dog is seeing things. You can practice. This is what we tell our students in our reactive dog program is take the dog out to the front lawn and do the training, train the activities or play the activities out on the front lawn. Because what's going to happen is your dog who, starts to get stressed or overexcited in the house about going on a walk, it's not even the walk, it's the predictive nature of what happens with dogs. Just getting the leash on your dog is predicting a walk, just opening the front door. So I'm sure everybody finds that the dogs are just overexcited or stressed by the time the front door opens. So if you can go play on the lawn, do some training, do some games. If you see something coming down the street, you can go back in the house, which is perfect. And your dog will start to understand that every time they go out the front door is not going to lead to overexcitement or fear or anxiety. And you're going to start to see, I hope you're going to start to see all of those responses disappearing inside your house. So, if your dog starts their walk off over threshold, and I hope everybody knows what I mean by over threshold. When the minute your dog goes through the door, they're not listening, they're not learning, they're not focused, they can't think rationally. If they go out the front door over threshold, the rest of the walk isn't going to get any better. Although, I have some people who say that their dogs do calm down as they go for a walk, but it's usually not the people with fearful dogs that are telling me that. Sometimes the overexcited ones, but just reduce it at home. And you're still getting your dog out, you're still playing the games, they're still out in the world. But I think that will go a long way towards reducing that initial response in the house and on the front lawn, and the other thing, is that you can certainly build your dog's confidence and teach them to focus on you and listen to you and learn through training. You can also take reactive dogs to training classes. You just have to pick the right training class for your dog. These days, a lot of trainers are outside. And so there's massive amounts of space in some of those training classes. So you could take your dog. I took Maddie to training classes when she was younger. And there were times when it was a little tight, but we managed through it. Certainly, I wouldn't hesitate to take her to an outdoor training class where the instructor was empathetic enough to know that we would need massive space to work on our own issues. So, I know here we have tons of reactive dogs in our agility program. Oh no, it's not your class. It's the next class. The whole class is leash reactive. But because we have so much space, everybody's dog stays under threshold, and the owners know how to work with them and are able to work with them and train them in that situation. That's definitely an option.
And I'm just going to add, because I know you're not going to, because you don't want to toot your own horn, but classes like agility or sports or any kind of fun training like that, it really does build their confidence and yours as a handler, but it builds the dog's confidence, and that helps with the anxiety as well overall, back at home and on the field.
Yes, I know that Maddie wouldn't probably be the dog she is. Not that we've resolved her issues. We're never going to resolve them. But she's certainly a lot more confident. And we did agility in the backyard with 2 jumps and a cone, or 2 jumps and a jump, whatever. And she did that for years, and super easy just to go out in your backyard and play with that, because we teach people how to do that. Here's some foundational stuff you can play in your backyard. All our people do. Yeah, definitely training. Just to go back and finish up management on the leash, or reducing your dog's stress level on the leash. Don't forget to take food. Like, how many people say to us, "Oh my God, we had a terrible moment the other night in the walk," and we say, "Did you throw food?" "No, crap, I forgot. I forgot to take food." So food can be, well, certainly for us, food is a training tool, but it can also be a management tool. So if you've got nothing else, and you've taught your dog to a cue find it, where you throw a ton of food on the ground, and your dog can redirect to that. That's certainly a management tool that you can use on walks. I use it. I used to use it with Maddie a lot. If she saw another dog, she would be, this high up in the air. But if she heard me say, "Find it," she would immediately come down to ground and start to search, because finding food on the ground is a real job that dogs did for thousands of years. So if you can teach your dog just to find a bunch of cookies that you throw on the ground, we call them treat bombs, silly name. Definitely you can get out of a situation, especially as you're turning and trying to get out of the situation, you're throwing food ahead of the dog on the ground, and you can't throw too much. So definitely, if you're going to go on a walk with your reactive dog, take food. Take tons and tons and tons of super high value food. That is a very, very good management tool for sure. And I always, Celeste and you and I are a little bit different on this. I think you walk Penny on a shorter leash, right? You walk Penny on a 6 foot.
Well, since COVID started, I've been walking her on the long one.
Okay.
Because there haven't been as many people, but now I'm so used to handling it that's all I'll take with me.
Yeah.
Usually still about 6 feet, but she has that give if she wants to go sniff a tree that I can't quite reach yet.
Yeah. I love 10-foot leashes for sure, because if there's no one around, you can let your dog out to sniff and they're not pulling on the leash. So most of our students, and certainly what we recommend in the Walks at Work program, is get some sort of non-pull equipment that is not a negative piece of equipment, that's positive, that's kind to the dog. So, we're very big fans of double hook harnesses, because that can, if you double hook your dog to the front and back ring, that certainly cuts down on pulling. I know that's what they use with Archie, and they love it. Because if your dog is pulling and lunging anyway on the leash, there's lots of dogs out there that haven't been taught to walk on a loose leash. If your dog is pulling and pulling and pulling on the leash, they're already in a bit of a state of over-arousal. And I find if you can cut down on that amount, on that ability to pull, your dog is not going to be quite as sensitive, and may not go off quite as dramatically if you don't allow that arousal to go up in the first place. So we always recommend a bit of a longer leash and a double hook harness, because you can hook your leash to both ends of that harness, to both rings on that harness. So that's also a good management tool. And again, not a training tool at all. but a good management tool. All
Mhm.
right. So I've gone through everything. Is there anything that you can think of to add to that?
Um, I'm just looking through.
And then for the owners, maybe always have wine in your fridge for when you come home from the walk.
Yes, that's a very good management tool.
That's the only thing I can think of to tell owners. Yeah, but give yourselves a break.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's really the
Yeah, you don't have to keep going out there,
yeah.
and your dog.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say your dog shouldn't meet 5 dogs on the walk. They don't have to go a prescribed distance to get that, their fitness level or their energy out. You're gonna do more with mental stimulation at home. So don't think you have to go. Don't keep exposing your dog to do that because you will never, ever reduce the reactivity if your dog's exposed over and over to that situation.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, Go ahead, Celeste.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, like, you're there to advocate for your dog. Like, know that it's not a behavior thing, that it is emotional, and like any emotional situation, you need to be supportive and understanding and patient. It's not a matter of like strong handing your animal out of there and kind of, you know, feeling that.
Yes, and actually that triggered a thought that I had forgotten to mention is that it's super important for your dog to be able to trust in you to keep them safe on a walk.
Mhm.
So, if you keep exposing your dog to these situations, your dog isn't going to have a lot of trust in your ability to keep them safe because those situations are not safe for you. In your dog's eyes, those situations are not safe. They're potentially life-threatening to your dog. And we have to remember that for your dog, some of those situations to them are life and death. They are truly afraid. So, if you're the one that puts them in those situations, they're not going to have a lot of trust in you. They have to, if they do have the trust that you are not going to expose them, or even if you do, if they are accidentally exposed, that you're going to get them out of there as quickly as possible. So if they can feel safe, their stress levels are going to go down for sure.
And then that's where the training comes in. If you can work with them to trust you to, if the situation pops up, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And you can help work through it with them instead of it just being a pull them and go kind of thing all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, but I really don't think that most owners out there are going to be able to reduce their dog's reactivity on their own.
No, but
yeah.
then there's a course for that, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And whether you take our course, we actually are opening up a new session, but whether you take our course or anybody's course, training and management have to go together. Management will get you halfway, training will get you halfway, but you can't be successful unless you put both of them together.
Mhm.
And the other thing is that we, when people ask us, when people call me all the time, can you fix my dog's reactivity? No, we cannot fix your dog. We can't fix your dog's reactivity, but we can substantially reduce your dog's reactivity. And there are just too many parameters and too many differences between dogs, among dogs and handlers, and there's commitment and effort and time. And, like I have a fearful dog. She's always going to be a fearful dog. You and I can certainly take our dogs to a lot of places and manage them quite well, but also know that there are some limitations for our dogs in life. Emily from Canine Enrichment had the best quote. She said, it's about livability, not fixability. So, any good trainer who is trained in reducing reactivity will be able to help you reduce it substantially. But never 100%. If somebody's guaranteeing you 100%, I would be running in the other direction on that one.
Yeah.
But certainly it's totally reducible and it's livable, and we both take our dogs out in the world and we both experience our dogs are not our dogs aren't missing anything in life because of their reactivity, but we know what we're doing when we get out there, and that makes all the difference.
Mhm.
So if anybody has any questions, please do put them in the comments below, because we will definitely, I'll definitely answer them, and we will post all the links that that I was talking about. I'll post all the links in the comments below as well. And I think Scott is putting up the link to the Walks at Work program. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure he is. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining us today, and we'll be back next week with another live, I'm sure. Not sure what we're going to do it on yet, but there's another thought. If anybody has any suggestions, or if there's anybody who's looking for, you know, some sort of knowledge or information, and you want us to do a live on it, just post it in the link below, and we'll take it under consideration. You know. Anyway, thanks everybody, and have a good day. Take care. Thanks, Les.